Well, just to kick us off, thank you everyone who's here. This is our first screening for QSCA of our first official semester, so we're so glad that you could join us. We apologize for all the technical difficulty. Hopefully we'll get some more people in during the screening. Maybe they're watching it on their own, but the panel will be starting approximately at 11 a.m. Looks like we're getting started just a few minutes behind schedule, so maybe just a few minutes after 11 a.m. But I will hand it off to AJ to introduce the film and start it off.
Thank you so much. Yes. So as said, the film runs about an hour and 15 minutes or so. So we should have some buffer time just in case, so you can have a break, and then we can go ahead and get started with our moderated discussion with the directors, as well as our very own USC's Dr. Slava Greenberg. Slava Greenberg is a postdoctoral teaching fellow at the University of Southern California School of Cinematic Arts and Kasdan Institute, or as Kasdan Institute, I should say. His research explores the potential of mainstream and emerging media forms to offer transformative experiences in reference to disability studies, trans studies, and gender. So if you like, you're welcome to also introduce yourself as well, Dr. Greenberg.
You did such a great job. No, it's not necessary. I'll talk about the film after everyone's watched it and won't spoil anything now.
Absolutely. Okay, perfect. So let me go ahead and start sharing my screen, and we can go ahead and get started with the screening here. All right, it looks like we have almost everybody back. So when we're ready, I think Jared can go ahead and start us off with introducing everybody, and then we'll get right into the discussion, which will be moderated by Dr. Greenberg as well.
Great. Thank you all so much for coming. And we're so excited because this is our first film screening of our first semester at QSCA. So it's a big event for us. So thank you all so much for coming, whether it's early morning or late at night all across the world. We're really excited to have you here today. First, I'll introduce one of the two directors, and excuse if I'm messing up this pronunciation. Zohar Melinek Ezra is a director, cinematographer, and editor, and he studied screenwriting at the Vancouver Film School. And holds a BA in New Media from Concordia University, Montreal, and an MFA in filmmaking and in theory from Sapir College in Israel. Our other director, who also played the lead role, is Roey Victoria Heifetz, a visual artist who lives and works in Berlin. She has presented work in numerous international solo and group exhibitions around the world, such as the Künstler Haus Beta Hanien in Berlin, the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, the Venice Biennale, and in the Israel Pavilion. And also I'd love to introduce our moderator, Dr. Slava Greenberg. And Slava Greenberg is a postdoctoral fellow teaching at the University of Southern California School of Cinematic Arts and Kasdan Institute. His researches explore the potential of mainstream and emerging media forms to offer transformative experiences in reference to disability studies, trans studies, and gender. And without further ado, I'd love to hand it over to Dr. Greenberg to start our Q&A.
Thank you, Jared. And thank you all the panelists and the directors who generously shared their film with us and allowed us to screen it to the students here at the School of Cinematic Arts. Just wanted to share with you when I myself first saw the film. I was very moved by it, and my first reaction was, wow, this is something that I haven't seen before in terms of representations of the trans feminine body, not in documentary nor in any fiction films that I had seen before. And so my immediate response was to ask permission to be able to bring this to you. And then my second thought was, wait, maybe it's not completely appropriate for students to show this type of film, and maybe it's not, maybe some scenes in it which have the nudity in ways that they probably, like myself, had never seen before, and it could be problematic in certain ways. And also, the film is not your regular type of fiction drama. It's very avant-garde in a lot of its aspects. And then I also thought, wait, maybe that's also not the best choice for students. And then as I was thinking these things, and I also asked Ellen, Josiah, and Jared what they thought about it. And they encouraged me to just give it a shot and try and open this up for everyone to be able to watch and decide for themselves what they thought about it. And we'll give you an opportunity to also share your thoughts and ask questions. So I'm interested to know how you experienced the film as well. I'd like to start out by asking a few questions before getting to the film, just to see how both of you got to producing this particular film. And I wanted to start out with asking Zohar a question about, well, in the first, in the opening sequence of the film, there's a character that you see, a trans masculine actor that you see at the beginning of the film, who was one of the participants in your series Spectrums that you produced prior to this film. It's a documentary series featuring various trans people in the Israeli community. And so you're coming from experience of documentary filmmaking as well as others, but that was your most recent experience. And it was also focused on the trans community. So I was wondering how you got to work on these issues, and how's the move from the documentary Spectrums to this film, Third Body.
Yes, can you hear me? So thank you for making this encounter happen and gathering together and watching the film. And for the question, each project was extremely different in the way it happened. But we made Spectrums, the documentary series. I made it with my best friend, Heifetz, that I know him since 2008. And we started working on the series in 2015, something like that. So we're really close friends, and we met in Canada, and we both went back home to Israel, and I was doing film, and he was doing community work with trans people in Israel, in Tel Aviv. And he told me, you know, even in humor, it's so weird to come back to Israel and to say to people that to describe myself like I am like Dana International, but the opposite. So it's just say that there was not a lot of understanding, you know.
Say for everyone who doesn't know who Dana International is, she's a trans feminine, very famous singer in Israel who won the Eurovision, and that's what she's remembered for.
Yes, exactly. So him basically saying that as a trans man, it's kind of odd to be in a society that completely doesn't know that it even exists. His experience. So we thought about something that would be very approachable to everyone in the society, all walks of life, in the internet, engaging, fun, you know, like very kind of like new, you know, like the new media type of stuff that we saw. And we just started to work on it with people that we know, with a lot of love, a lot of enjoyment, and it just started to explode, you know, and was very good. And from that, we showed it in the Jewish Museum in Berlin in 2017. And Roey Victoria was there, and we met and we talked, and she saw the series and she really liked it, and we knew that we should probably work together on something. And then she came and she asked me to work with her on an art project, and the art project just developed slowly into this film.
Yeah, I guess that also answers another question that I had, because Roey Victoria is a famous artist, and she works, she doesn't work usually on feature-length films, and so I was wondering how that evolved. And I know that you both first showed some clips, or it started out as an art exhibition with some of the, or parts of the film, I guess, that you showed at an art gallery. And I was also wondering about the transition from an art show to a feature-length film, a fiction film, how that came about, and maybe the different responses that you got from the art show, and then when it became a feature film, which is not as accessible and approachable as the series is. Maybe this one is a lot harder to watch. There are really hard to watch scenes in that film, which is completely different than your series Spectrums, which looks like a bunch of MTV clips put together with a very strong sort of Instagram feel to it, very upbeat music. And in this film, you have the entire film, or a lot of it, the lead is being silenced, and so it's very, very different. So I was wondering if you can say something about the move from an art show to a feature.
So in the beginning, we filmed it as a feature in a style of kind of realistic documentary, and we knew it's going to be also presented as an art show and also presented as a full feature. And the art show experience was fantastic. I think because people come and go, and the element of time is very different, and you know, when you need to breathe and you go out and you see it with other screens or with other videos that kind of like relate to each other and communicate to each other, there's something that people that is beyond a story or a narrative that make people kind of see it as something that is more aesthetic. And I think in one way it's very interesting, in one way it's not necessarily what we wanted to do, something that is thought-provoking and that is new, as you said, that we didn't see in cinema before. But I think there's something also really powerful about just giving it in the art world as it is, like this. Like one screen was one scene, which is a little bit differently edited, which was the bedroom scene with Matthias, and one was in Malibu, the little kind of performative beach scene, and one was a different kind of more video clippy video that we filmed in Los Angeles, and they related to each other in a really interesting way. And for example, you saw in each of the screens, you saw something that kind of like aesthetically related to one another, just a position of a body or a face or an emotion or something that kind of worked together. So the experience was very, very different and interesting. But I knew also as a filmmaker, I knew that I'm really interested and passionate to have kind of like an experience from beginning to an end and have like a whole kind of an emotional roller coaster ride too with it. Yeah.
Victoria, I guess for you, you are used to these interactions in art galleries with your work, and all the drawings in the film are part of your work. And so I guess the world of an art gallery and in the film, and it's something that is a lot more, I guess, natural to you. So maybe the screening of the film was a more new experience for you. So how was it for you, the difference between showing it at an art gallery and getting feedback from screenings?
Hi. First, also thank you for inviting us. It's always nice, to see the viewers or to speak about it and to see Zohar. I'm in Berlin, Zohar in Tel Aviv, and you, of course, in California. So yes, for your question. So actually, in a way, I think it was all for all of us, for me and Zohar, it was all in the gray area. And it's funny, it's in a way, the way that I feel also with my body, and the reason actually that I approached Zohar was speaking about it, that I approached him after I saw Spectrums, Ala Retzef, and which was, for me, was evoking and very touching, because it's the first time that I felt there is a narrative in TV or online, whatever, that speaks differently about the body experience and transition experience. And definitely that I'm Israeli, but it was even, I can even say that what Afek and Zohar did, it was even extreme back then when you think about, the spectrum all over of narratives. It was just not the usual, narrative. And I was very, touched. And then I approached Zohar because I got this art prize. And I felt that I need to do something else. And first of all, to tell my own story. As you said, Slava, I'm a painter. I'm mostly in painting. And yes, I've been shown my paintings all around. And I felt this is the opportunity from my own loneliness, because I don't know how many of you know or have some experience. I think most of all, as a trans person, the journey is very lonely. I mean, all of us are lonely, definitely in Corona time, but it's like you have no answers. And when I started to ask my questions, more questions in 2013, I felt that the narrative online was mostly as I said, like mostly the classic narrative, I can say, the narrative of redemption, born in the wrong body and doing the process of a new life and a new body. And I felt that there is more in my case, and I needed to have more questions. So then I reached Zohar, and I felt this is the opportunity, and we started with documenting me and then documenting others. And what you've seen today, it's the result of it. So first of all, like we showed the bedroom scene as an installation in Israel as part of this Rosenblatt Prize. And I think it shaped also the art scene there, because yes, they used to see video performances and of course art videos, but as Zohar said, I think it was not just it was in gray area in between cinema and art, it was also, which I liked very much, it was very physical. So you went into the room and there was no way to hide, even for me, and you needed to get into this bedroom scene and to confront, the sexual, violent two bodies there. And I think it. I think I'm still thinking about it. I think it still made me to think a lot about art and about what I used to do and what we used to do in general. And I totally agree also with Zohar that we wanted also to give another journey. So it's very different journeys. That's what I see, or different experiences. Like the experience in a gallery is very physical and it's very me. And I saw that in the chat someone asked that why we did so many close-ups. So I can talk about it, of course, more. But in a way, me and Zohar also created this kind of a language that comes from my drawing and comes from Zohar's perspective as a director that he did in other projects in the past. And the idea is something that is very straightforward. You can see everything. You can see all the damages. You see your body, the way you watch your body in the mirror every day. Definitely as a trans person, that I think everyone is watching their body in mirror today more than ever. But I think as a trans person, you just, you know, the changes and you know, you're very how can I say, like, see it in many perceptions, because you have this experience, sometimes the outside of your body experience most of your life, and then when you're getting into living your life finally, and admitting that you have something else, let's say like this, so then suddenly there's so many, the way I say, there's like a reunification of many perspectives suddenly. And so that was the experience that we wanted to show, and I think in the gallery people felt it, like physically, and in the film I'm sure, although I can never know, that people get something more as emotional journey. What is really interesting, that in the gallery we were standing there, so you actually also like spoke with the viewers. If it's in the opening, and also during the 5 weeks, I think more than Zohar, I was there almost every day. So it's a very intense experience for me and for the viewers themselves.
Thank you, Roy Victoria. I have another question just off of what you were saying, is another preliminary question before we go into the harder scenes to watch, and I'm sure to shoot as well. So the first thing that I was wondering about, was it just a natural choice to play the role of the character and parts of yourself? Did you ever consider trying to find another actress to, you know, gain some distance from your own perspective, or was it just you knew immediately that you want to play that role?
So yeah, I mean, what was really precious about our process of me and Zohar, that you come from, I guess, I'm not sure, but you come from, all of you, I mean, come from more film and cinema background, yes? And so what was really unique about Zohar and the way we worked is that it was like a little bit different. So we didn't like write, you know, like a plot and then looking for actors and then looking for a producer, and because it was something that came from a lot of emotions and without a lot of money, and it felt just natural. So we worked a little bit different. So we did this documentary of 13 minutes that was part of the Venice Biennale, and then we did this bedroom scene with Matthias, the actor, and it always felt that we both agreed that we want to bring up this experience of sexual experience. And it's not from my biography. I did have experience of violence, but the idea was that to create something that bring up this moment that you've watched in the apartment. And I felt, and Zohar felt, that I guess it's very natural that I will be there. If it was the best decision, I don't know. I guess times will say, but it's not easy for me to watch until today, to see my body and to see myself as, of course, as a victim, or as also dominated by someone else. But I have to say that during the shooting, it felt very right to be there. We also did it in very intimate way. So it was me, the other actor, Matthias, that his name is also Matthias, and Zohar. and Zohar with his camera without lighting, and we did it also in the other actor apartment in Berlin. So it was all very different. You know, I'm not so experienced with the film industry, but as much as I learned from Zohar, it's nothing that not really happens usually. But maybe Zohar can also speak about this, those decisions or not decisions.
The decisions of working as intimately.
But also choosing Roey Victoria to play the lead while also co-writing, co-directing.
Yeah, it was such a unique thing to do together, because we didn't go into this as a normal film or a normal any project, because again, it's very sensitive, and also it's very intimate, and it's also like it's so fragile and human, and it's about we couldn't have it over kind of like overacted or over directed or overproduced or ever anything. It needed to be so raw and realistic, but still sensitive, very sensitive and artistic and open, and with a language that expands your mind and doesn't just, you know, gives you any kind of realistic documentary. And because it was me and Roey Victoria just working together, it was kind of the natural way for us to say, go in and be a part of it as the actress, and then we'll see really as we go. And we wrote the script as kind of like scenes. There's no dialogue, and we wrote it as scenes, as kind of points of what actions should happen, and to each action what kind of an emotional intention should be a part of it, and what it leads to kind of a spiritual, psychological and emotional journey with each action. And the scene in the bedroom scene was very, very unique, as I said before, because it was only the three of us, and we knew that it can't really be a bigger production, and maybe only I would add a sound person because we had issues with the sound, but that's it. It was very, very intimate, and that was the way to do it, because we also worked with him on the script, and a lot was how you say, ad-lib. You know, we kind of we knew one point leads to the other, but in between those points everything was open. Many things that you saw there, me as a camera person didn't know what to expect, so there's a feeling of the audience of shock too, because I was shocked. And it's not like, oh my God, I'm shocked and I'm moving the camera. It's like, I don't know where to follow. When he threw the pillows, I didn't know that he's going to throw the pillows. So I was like, is he going to do something? Am I still holding the camera on him, or am I going directly to the reaction of the actress? When he threw her on the bed, I also didn't. We both didn't know. So her reaction, Roey Victoria's reaction, is real reaction, and my reaction as a person behind the camera is, it's kind of like, you know, it's so emotional and intimate, because I, as the third person in this scene, in this room, was really a part of it, going in really close, going out, trying to figure out for myself what is needed now. Should I go more far, or should I really go in now? And it was almost like the three of us were having this very intimate psychological journey together, and it was real. You know, it's kind of hard to say, because it's such aggressive and difficult or dark scene, but it was real. Not to say there's good and evil in the person or anything like that. It was acted, but the journey there for the three of us was very real, like almost like a documentary.
Yeah, I think you can sense that of the scene. It's a very intense film, and I think scene is very intense, and where it comes in the film after this long process and journey of this character being silenced throughout the film and us not being able to hear her voice anywhere. And so I think that made it even more intense. So like the overall film is not, like I said, it's not a fun kind of a light watch at all. There are scenes that are quite difficult to watch, and I think particularly because of the silencing of the main character of the lead. And so it feels like she keeps being silenced both by her mother and then later on by her father, being used sort of like an object for them for them needing to be listened to by her, and she is being sort of used as the silent object. And then even in the only scene where we do get to hear her voice finally, then that's the karaoke scene, and then we kind of hear the voice, but we don't actually, because it's also kind of goes through somebody else's lyrics and tunes, and it's also not exactly her own voice. It's also something that is kind of brought through an external kind of voice. And this kind of reminded me of David Lynch's Elephant Man, where in the first 40 minutes we don't get to hear Merrick speak, but even Lynch allows us to finally hear Merrick's voice, and here you are not allowing us that pleasure or this sort of relief as spectators when we are so desperate to hear the lead's voice. So you're not really not allowing that. I just, and then when it goes, the only time where we see a little bit of relief is in the final scene of the film, where the character goes out to the world and she's just like another person in a crowd, and the crowd is what gives her the affirmation that she needs. The sort of validation comes in that crowd finally. And so the general feeling is that there's this body that keeps being defined by these external gazes on her all the time, the parents, and then the encounter with the violent encounter with that guy. So this notion of this body being defined by its surroundings, policed, confined, oppressed, and then finally is only relieved by blending with the crowd. There's, I guess there's always a conversation within the film of what is, when the body's being policed and when is it free, and then this tension between confinement and freedom keeps running like a thread throughout the film. So I was just wondering about your experiences of when is this character free, or what is freedom for this character throughout the film?
Should yeah.
Zohar, you want to? I will speak after you.
Okay. Something that was very interesting to us is to talk about the encounters, how the encounters could be kind of like a reflection of her inner world or inner struggle or inner conflict, and each one of the persons in the film dealt with kind of a detachment from themselves and their bodies and their physical state in a very different way. And it kind of was like a mirror of her consciousness, and she kind of experienced her inner world kind of like expressed out in the outer world in very, very different ways. And I think this thing that like the quote in the beginning of Viktor Frankl, "What is to give light must endure burning," is such a powerful concept or idea, because it means someone needs to go through the pain and the strife and the conflict in order to really release themselves from holding on to something, and to kind of like letting go of their limitations that kind of bind them. So it can be letting go of a limitation that is physical, and kind of like when you feel the body can be a prison, and letting go of any kind of like an identity that kind of you feel like is blocking you. And I think what's really, there's so much to say, but I feel like it's important to share that one of during spectrums, one of the most it's not someone that was filmed, but one of the most powerful things that I heard from a trans woman, that she said that when she goes on to an encounter or a date, she doesn't know if she's going to be killed or not. And it's something that really, unfortunately, is reflecting a very dark reality of specifically trans women sexual experience and experience in general with men and the other world, that there's always a level of like, when can it become really violent? And we talked about it, and we had to have a scene like this, and the scene didn't need to be just she experienced violence and that's it. No, it's something that had to be about him too, what he experienced as the man in the person, and what kind of like journey he went through, an emotional journey, because he was really kind of like having issues with himself too, and they both kind of like met in this one point and exploded in a way, and for her there was a release, and for him maybe it was also something that he needed to go through when there was this confrontation with himself through this meeting. Yeah, so we can go on and on, but that's one thing.
Yeah, I just want to add, I mean, it's interesting what Slava, that the way you said it. First, I feel, and I think Zohar also will agree with me or not. I think that I didn't look in this project for a sense of freedom. I think this was one of our nicht. I don't want to say said it in German. It was weird. It doesn't happen to me very often. That we felt that there's no need for a kind of a redemption or a kind of a scene at the end that has a kind of a closure. But saying that, I think while we were filming and shooting the last scene, it was 6 months after the bathroom scene. And the only thing that I brought into this scene was, I remember that we spoke about it like many hours, me and Zohar, and also Asaf Raz, the producer, which was also, Asaf joined us and produced the film, and it was part of the journey and the production. So it was 3 of us in the train station and trying to understand psychologically where I am. And it was 6 months after we filmed the last scene that I am like in the film, like I'm exactly like 5 minutes after what happened, and also where I am in my own body in general, because this film, it's not about me, but it's related to me. And I felt that this scene in the train is there's no answers. Like, it's the only comfort that I have from this scene, and I'm speaking from a viewer point of view also, is that the character, me, has this moment to stop. And as you said, Slava, I don't know if to blend in, but at least to be surrounded by other people, and to have a kind of a pause and to get this tiny moment of having hope of a change, from being a victim, for being passive, for being submissive, and in general, for being in this intense transitioning of body transitioning in general. And about what Zohar said about the scene itself, and it also speaks about freedom, that for me, I felt that I was reliving a trauma in a way, because, yeah, I'm not going to speak about myself here, but I have some, I brought into the scene some of my experience, and the way I worked also with my painting, I need to work very direct and very close. And sometimes it's not the best. I guess someone in the chat asked me, how did I protect myself? I took care of myself. Emotionally, I didn't. And also in the film, I think I'm still healing from the process. And I think for me and for Zohar, of course, was the only ways to relive it. And because I'm not an actress, definitely not a professional one, and also I don't have any needs to be for the future, at least. The only way I could made it was to relive it as, as unprofessional, just to be there and to feel it. And what I do know, that as someone that can understand, accept of herself, always, as I said before, not just as a trans person, also as a person, I'm from those who thinking too much and thinking about myself, being present, but at the same time seeing him, herself from the outside. I know from my experience in sex encounters with men that I would say something maybe provocative, but straight men and bisexual men that mostly I meet during sex, they also coming from their own, I don't want to say trauma, but there is also, as Zohar said, a journey. If they're really into it, yes, and not using us as an object, yes. If they're really being there in this moment, from my experience, it's a I mean, I don't like the word journey, but I don't have another word for that. But it is experience for both of us. And I think what me and Zohar knew, and also Matthias, who brought a lot into the scene, that we cannot just show just the perspective of the woman, the trans woman. And when we showed the scene to our friends at the beginning, to Affect, that was part of the Spectrum, the last project, he said that he was thinking also of the perception of Matthias most of the time, and not even my perception. And and for the beginning, when you hear something like this, you said, no, I mean, why? But then actually we were happy, because I think if you want to go deeper into and to touch something so sensitive as this, you have to show two perspectives, even three, if you can. So I think it's in a way also connected to the subject that Slava, you said, freedom. So and maybe for a subject that you might bring up later on. I mean, for us it was very important. Also, what is it to be a victim, and what is it to be a submissive, and what is it to be a passive? If it is really, if I was really a passive in that scene, and maybe I'm not at all, the victim there in front of my mother, father, and the stranger that I'm having sex with.
Thank you. I'm just gonna ask. I have a lot more questions, but I want to give an opportunity for the audience to ask questions as well. So I only have one last question. Given all the things, the very complex and nuanced experiences that you just brought up, so I was just wondering, who do you think this film is for? Given that it just details such a nuanced trans feminine experience that is very strange to the, say, general audience. This is not your typical general audience kind of a film.
I would love to say it's for everyone that is above, is a mature age, because I really would like to believe that we can open our hearts and our minds to something that is just speaking about in its purest sense the human condition, and to not expect cinema to just feed us with a spoon everything, and have almost a mystical experience in cinema too. That's the kind of films that I like, that are very meditative and spiritual in their silence, and that they don't just give you, you need to give them, and it's kind of like you give yourself. And I think I I personally do not like cinema that is overly entertainment, whether it's entertainment for dark entertainment or comedy entertainment. I really like cinema that makes my life change, that makes me really grow with my heart and with my mind. And I think the issues that we touch there are difficult, but they're important. And it's not to say this film is important in a political sense, but it's important to go into the psychology and to the emotional presence of that moment. It's important to talk about the relationship between our families like this. And it's important not to give too many answers, I think, too, not to give too many exclamation marks, points in any art form or in any platform of creation, to give a room for discussion and to feel and to ask questions. And I think I would love it to just be shown to everyone, regardless, just as many options and platforms as possible, and free. Really, the free. I would put it online for free if I could.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Zohar said. I also agree. I think it's for everyone. And I don't know, from my experience in general, speaking about my transition or at least my perspective and Zohar perspective, it's a lot about the body. And I think a lot of people relate to it from this perspective. And I think that I hope that the film is bringing up issues that a lot of people can feel related to, and mostly the idea of what is it vulnerability, what is it being a victim in when you are pushing yourself into the murder scene. And I think, which by the way, from the viewers at the exhibition, I know that a lot of cis women, mostly cis women, came and approached me and told me that it touched them very much because they had this kind of experience. So here is just one of the example that that it's not even about being a trans woman. It's about, unfortunately, every woman, I don't know, every woman, most of the women had this kind of experience. But even more, like another layer, is the experience of being vulnerable in your naked body in front of another stranger person. And you know, for 2 hours, and what kind of questions and what kind of confrontations it brings up. So I think it's something that is more wide than just the trans community. But of course that we are aware that the aesthetic of the film is maybe limited it, because it's not like Spectrum a la Retzef that has something, as Slava said, like something more a clip, MTV clip, and something that people, it's more easy for them to watch. But we did what we felt, and I'm very proud of it, and I know it's very part of my aesthetic, and I know it's part of Zohar aesthetic. So yeah, the idea, I think what is really beautiful about art, that you cannot control everything. So who knows who and where on will find it, this film important or not. And yeah.
Thank you so much, both of you. Can we, Ellen, Jose, or Jared, do you want to read or some of the questions from the audience?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually was going to have whoever had the questions come up and ask them.
Yeah.
I'll start off with Mars, because they had asked this question earlier. I don't know if it's still something that they want to, but you're welcome to come on and ask as well right now. Well, it seems as though they happen to forget the question at the moment, which is okay. So we'll move on right now to Amalia, I believe was the next one. I know half of the question was answered already, but there was another half as well.
Yes, well, first of all, I do feel that this film is really important, and that the way that it's made will not make people feel alienated to it. The fact that it's an art film, I think the story resonates beyond the form, and it was really beautiful and vulnerable work, and thank you for sharing that. I was curious about the casting of the other actors aside from Roey Victoria, because every performance in the film is so incredible, and it felt so intimate, and it was hard. I'm very interested to learn about the performative process that Roey Victoria was using, and how there was so much blurring between real life and the performance. And I felt that from everyone, including Mateus, which terrified me, though clearly there was so much craft and skill there, but it was extremely hard to separate that. So I'm interested in hearing how you found the other actors, and were they people from your life that you knew, or was there an audition process for them?
That's a great question, because wow, what a journey. There was an audition process, but not the typical audition process. It was like meeting and talking and really having a very personal experience together. And okay, we can talk each person, because there's not a lot. The German actress in the beginning, maybe Roey Victoria, you can talk about her because you actually met her, but extremely interesting and unique process of working together. And she's the one that chose the theater piece to read. So it's really every person was a part of the script too. That's why it felt so real as well. And the father, he's an Israeli actor that a friend of mine recommended, and we met in a cafe, just me and him in Tel Aviv. And I talked to him about the film, and he was just so interested to do it, and no problem. And then we brought him to Berlin, and just to give another example of how real or personal it was. The monologue was completely real, based on an actual surgery that he had. So it was not written. It's 100% something that he went through, and it's very, very intimate. And yes, and also Matthias, maybe also you can talk to about meeting Matthias and how it went.
Yes, yes, thank you for this question. It was really, it was a journey. So as Zohar said, it was also very unique because it was not auditions, it was mostly research for people that can feel connected to the story and also can bring something from themselves. So Susanne, the actress at the beginning as my mother, I met also through recommendations, and she brought this theater piece about, I don't know how much do you remember from it, but yeah, it's about this queen that in a way attacking or talking about her son that is a king or a prince, I mean, is another king, in a way that she's in a way hates him, but at the same time she knows that he's part of her body. And she brought it, and me and Zoe at the beginning, like we needed time to understand it, and we were very happy that she brought something like this, because this was another layer that she brought into the film that speaks about relationship between a mother and a son/daughter, which for me as a person very related to my own experience, that for my mother I will always be her son, which is okay with me. I can understand it, and also the idea of, again, of domination, the idea that I came from her body, and again the body, and how much it can control me, and in general, I mean, we didn't speak about it, but as a trans person, one of the main battles that you have, or one of, let's say, I don't know if to say battles, but is with your parents, and for the parents to accept you or tolerate you as a trans person, it's not easy at all, and it's also something that I think it's unspoken in the media. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that we as a trans people, we are narcissistic, but we are definitely speaks about ourselves a lot. And sometimes people tend to forget there is the parents and the family, and they also transitioning with you, and they need also time. And for my mother to know that she brought to the world her son, she felt in a way, that I belong to her. So it's about territory. So it's another aspect that Susanne brought, which was very interesting because we didn't speak about it. And she met me, and then she did her homework, and then in the second meeting she brought the theater play. And Matthias I met also through recommendations, and we had also a talk. And it was interesting because Matthias felt, he's an actor, and both of them, also Susanne, they are very actually successful actors in Germany in theater mostly. So they can be, they can very easily be connected to the role, but they understood there is like opportunity to bring something from themselves. So also Matthias spoke a lot about his experience as a gay person, and being vulnerable while he's having sex with straight men. And also this was was in the first meeting. And then when he met Zohar, I think him and Zohar also spoke alone, and he felt connection in another layer. So So each of the, and of course, the Israeli actor, the father, and which was very brave to bring his own story, which was also a surprise for us. So yeah, so you can say that all of the actors brought something personal, maybe except Fred, the one in the karaoke, but it's a little bit different there. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's really incredible.
All right, perfect. So we have Ellen coming on to come ask a question here in a second. Also, I just wanted to say, since we're getting closer to noon, if there's anybody that needs to go, this is recorded. You're welcome to. Same goes for both of you as well, if there's any reason to. But here is Ellen as well to ask your question.
Hi, thank you so much. You know, you're being so modest about this film, but it is so incredibly well shot. I'm amazed at the continuity given the space of time, and the performances are just amazing. What I found really striking was the way you chose to present the parents, because it was like the denial and the narcissism of the parents that sort of kind of just talk at you, you know, just talk at you, and you're sympathetic, you know, you're silently empathetic with them, but they are kind of completely denying you. And I just found that I think it's a really important thing to be introducing into films about trans people. But could you just talk about the karaoke scene?
Okay, maybe I can say a few words. Thank you first. And Zohar can also say something. The karaoke scene is very interesting. So this is, I think it's maybe I can say that even very personal, because it's one of my karaoke songs. And so like all this journey, I knew that I want to sing this song, and I knew that this will be, I guess, the first time that you as a viewer are going to hear my voice. And we felt the need to bring something of the outsider perspective that take you out from the intensivity of the scene with my mother, and then of course the next scene in the bedroom scene. And it was very interesting because we felt there are two layers there, because one is taking the character outside of the intimacy and bringing some fun, yes, in this film. That's the way we saw it. I'll know that when you see the film, I don't know if the viewer really feels that there is like entertainment and fun in this scene. So we felt that we need to show also another side of the character. But at the same time, what happened that the characters also shows more vulnerability, because it's the first time that you can hear the character, and also the song that she chose, which is my song in a way, which is Private Dancer. And I guess you all know the words and the lyric, and which also speaks about, this kind of relationship between two, and let's say like this, without going into more details. You can listen to the song later on. So I think there are two layers that we felt that we need. One is to take one step backwards, but at the same time, what happened, I think it's also one step forward, because it's the first time that you can really hear the character. And when you hear the character, what she is singing is about this also intense song. So this is the way I see it, but I'm actually curious to see how Zohar also see it, because we never really spoke about this specific scene.
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite scenes, and I think there's something so moving there, because you feel a sense of home for the first time for the character, even though you went with her supposedly in her apartment in the beginning and then to her father apartment, and you were very intimate with her in front of the mirror and in kind of like a very kind of home environment. But then it's the first time that you see her soul sings, and like that's something that is expressing something so deep and almost like a dream. Like you see the child or a person that is a dreamer, a person that has aspirations and needs and wants and passions and is smiling and is in her element too, you know, because it's not like on the big stage and it's not like this big kind of thing, but it's in this little bubble, in this little booth. She's allowing herself in a very intimate, private way to be the light. And I think it's exactly in the middle. And I think
when you cut to the big screen, when you cut to the big video screen.
Which video screen?
In the karaoke scene, isn't there a part where you're filming her and then you film a screen of her?
No, it's actually what I did. I went out of the booth and there was a reflection. So I filmed them from outside of the booth, but you saw all the people passing through and there was kind of like an in and out experience, like of movement. And I was kind of like floating through her body from the outside, and you could hear the crowd in the club. And you couldn't hear her sing, but you can see her body when it's free for the first time, I feel. And it was very important to do it right before the scene with Matthias, that you see kind of completely the opposite.
Thank you so much.
All right, perfect. I think Mars actually has a question again, if they'd like to come on and ask it as well now.
Yeah, so I'm just speaking a little lower because my sibling is nearby. But you know, as someone who's going through the process of understanding themselves and going through the whole transition process right now, I'm watching this film, like it really resonated with me in the sense of not really understanding who you are, and at the same time realizing that there's this whole world that exists beyond like your emotions and beyond the things. And it made me realize too, when you said earlier about the parent thing, about realizing that it's not just you transitioning, but also your parents. And it's like, you know, I still haven't discussed this with my father, who I'm terribly terrified of. But you know, like just the amount of strength I see in you and in this film, like it really inspired me. And so I guess my question was then, you know, like what was that moment for you that you just kind of decided to, like, you know, like this was something that you were like, I'm going to do this, like not only the film, but like you yourself, like you decided like I'm going to transition because it's like it's something I feel inside me.
So first, thank you very much. Wow. So it's very interesting because I see the films also as also something that is very typical me, that it's layer under layer under layer, and I never had a decision. And I think it's also the way I see my transition, which means it's not that there is not a decision, but there is no starting point and ending point. When I started, you know, I'm not going to speak about all my biography here, but as we know, or maybe we don't, as trans people, it is something that was always around, but we didn't know how to call it by its name, and but definitely in my case, in general, that's when I moved to Berlin from Israel 9 years ago. It was the first time that I felt that I can breathe and can start asking questions. So I did before, but I didn't. I was very coward, and I just didn't feel that I have the ability to do it in Israel. In my case, and when I moved to Berlin, I started to cross-dressing and went into this beautiful journey, and of course also lonely journey, and not very intense journey of I can say of asking questions about my body and my gender, which is still going on, of course. And I think this film is very relevant because it's like the way we work is also the way, as I said, the way I'm transitioning is always there is one step and then two steps backwards, and you're doing kind of a reflection and realization of it, and new resolutions, and then again, and it's part. I mean, I'm speaking only about myself. This is the way I see my journey of transitioning, also the way I see life. The only thing that I know about myself as a trans person and as a person in general is the obligation to be authentic and to be real with myself, which means also sometimes to even to rethink, about my journey. So that's the reason also in the film you see also, I think, what I said before, the perspective of the parents, the perspective of the attacker, yes, the man. I think it's something it's very similar to the way I see my life, that I'm putting myself in a journey, but I also thinking about myself from the outside and about the people that surrounding me, and it's ongoing process. So it's not just a linear a process and journey. It's also something that is, it's something like even more vertical in many ways. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
All right, wonderful. I actually have a question of my own and a comment. Again, first, thank you so much for sharing this and being so open about a lot of these intimate topics and themes in your personal life for the both of you. I really am touched just kind of about how there is also within the film universal themes that you talked about body and image and dysmorphia almost, as well as just kind of the roles that a trans individual may end up playing in society and how it's perceived by other people, and or how it's not perceived and ends up being an object or otherwise. So really what I'm curious about, because I think this film, unlike many films, and what I think really makes it stand out is that it is such a real representation, authentic representation of the trans experience and the emotions that go through it. How can filmmakers like ourselves, I mean, those that also don't identify as trans, begin to represent more these real representations of the trans experience in life, and maybe not as explicitly and solely centered around stories like this, but even in creating characters that kind of go through the same experiences and have to deal with these struggles as well.
So the question was how to, sorry, I didn't fully understand.
No worries, just essentially how can we begin to authentically represent trans characters and people within cinema?
It's working with trans individuals, and to not be afraid of also exposing real stuff, regardless if it's difficult real stuff or incredibly sweet real stuff. Just to really be open really be open and use cinema as a platform for discussion and really put yourself out there, and for everyone, you know, for everyone that is different from a norm that you represent. And definitely, I personally think, of course, everyone can probably agree that it's very important to have the people that can actually speak themselves, show themselves, and that would really elevate um, the cinema or the cinematic world too, because we see something that is beyond just real. You know what I'm trying to say? That the intention of the creator was not just like visibility. The intention of the creator was just like um, kind of collective consciousness awakening and yeah, if it if it answers your question.
Yeah, I want to add something to it. I totally agree with Zohar, and I think one is to, and I think it's already happening, to give a platform for trans people to speak and to tell their stories, and also to represent ourselves and to be behind the scene and in front of the scene. But at the same time, I will say also as creators that are not from the necessarily from the trans community, which, by the way, I think also can speak about trans issues and represent trans issues, of course. We are actually in a very unique time that I think the world is a little bit more open to see more narratives and to hear more narratives than the well-known and the mainstream narrative. And with saying that, it means that it's not only telling your story, it's also telling your perspective. So I always think that a trans person, for me, what is very interesting about meeting other trans people, it's not just to feel, okay, they have the same story, because, by the way, we usually don't have the same story because there's so many stories of transitioning. It's the idea that this, and I said it at the beginning, the idea that we lived our life outside of our body in a way, through so many years, and right now we are trying at least to live our life inside the body again, or for the first time in my case. It's giving us a very unique perspective. It's a perspective, it's two perspective, even three perspective. And I feel that the trans people that I know and I speak with, what are interesting for me is that I hear that they also rethink about other subjects differently because of that, about sexuality, about politics, about everything. And I think this is the opportunity also to reunite and reconnect with creators that are not trans, because at the end we are speaking about the same in a way, because the essence is the body and the present, and transitioning is something that has so many links to so many other transitionings. Yeah. And because I think the world, I don't want to say had enough, but heard the narratives and at least knows that we are exist now, for now. I mean, I know there are people who are trying to erase us, mostly also in the US, in Israel, yes, but nevertheless, we can take this opportunity. It's not just to hear trans people, also to say, okay, now we have the option also to see where there is overlapping between trans people and non-trans people, and to see that we can create something new from it. So, and most of all, it's not to be afraid to be politically corrected. It's something that is very important for me. Maybe I speak only for myself, and I think Zohar also, as much as I know, and I know is like me, but maybe me, I feel more freedom because as a trans person, but I'm not afraid not to be, I mean, I'm not afraid to be not politically corrected. And I think it's the only way to create art, because otherwise it's become very flat. And this is not the reason that I'm doing it. I mean, art and life in general. So yes, of course, don't, you know, have a lot of respect to trans creators and trans people, of course, and respect everyone, but you cannot really make art with politically correctness. It's nice, but it's not more than nice. That's the way I see it.
I
Yeah,
just
that's
want to
wonderful.
quickly add to what both of you suggested about how to better represent the trans community. So something that I think that the trans community has to borrow from the disability rights movement is the slogan of "Nothing about us without us." I think it is a good thing for us all to learn on any topic that we want to address. I also wanted everyone to invite everyone to engage more in Roey Victoria's art and Google her and check out her amazing art and follow her, as well as Zohar's films. And as a good beginning, I suggest you start with his Spectrums, which is an amazing series, which I'm sure you'll all enjoy.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yes, you definitely added so much perspective to myself in terms of being able to better see the perspectives from trans individuals. And again, like you said, in order to create the best representation is really involving those within it, which obviously is something that I was intending on. But I think you really opened up our eyes through this film and just really how to express that, and also just how to collaborate all together in something like this. So thank you again so much for your time. This has been incredibly moving, and your work is just I'm blown away. Like I did not know what to expect coming into this exactly, but it is something that I am thoroughly inspired by. So thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you so much for having us and for expressing everything about the film. It really means a lot to us. Thank you. And thank you, Slava.
Yeah, I also really thankful. Thank you for this opportunity and for your sensitive questions, and actually very interesting questions. And yeah, so thank you very much. And thank you, Slava, for this opportunity and the good feedbacks. Because Slava approached me like 2 months ago or 3 months ago, and it was very beautiful, you know, like just to, because as you can imagine, you know, this film is, I mean, of course, not everybody feel related to, and also a lot of people overwhelmed and they and I think Slava was like just shared with me his feelings. So, and also his, you know, his doubts. So, and I think again, as talking about politically correctness, this is the only way to discuss, because you cannot just say amazing, yeah, and then you need also to say, you know, I'm not sure, and let's talk about it. So thank you for being honest and direct with me.
Absolutely. Thank you. I hope you all have a wonderful day then.